goodness, I need a new tripod so bad. It's just loose and doesn't do anything. Like, I know those can come off, but the top doesn't bend anymore, and those just fall off, and it's just a sad life. Good morning, y'all. If you're new here, my name is Brianna, and I'm a 4th year, 3rd grade teacher in North Carolina. And I finally got my camera situated this morning. Today is Saturday, so I've officially been home from school for an entire week. We've been out for 3 weeks, but we were able to go back into our classrooms for a bit, and it took a while for my county to have us work remotely, just because they're pretty old school. But I'm not complaining because I'm a person that can't survive just staying in one place, especially because I have no one here with me. This week was interesting. It was so nice to wake up this morning and not have to worry about checking my email. I will say that has probably been the most stressful thing throughout this whole remote learning, not being at school, is we have to constantly check our emails. Like, we get assigned meetings that we have to go to. There's PDs that if you don't sign up for right away, then you lose your spot. And some of them, like, I actually want to go to. And I have to check for parent emails. I have to check for administration emails. I have to check for kid comments on Google Classroom. I have to make sure everything's working on Google Classroom. Like, for teachers that like to be in control, which is most of us, right? This has been super challenging because it's really up to the sites you're using, you know? Like, those can crash and you don't have control over it. Or your team members came together to create something and you post it and one of the links might be wrong or something. Like, you didn't double check because we had to do all of this so fast. At least, like, I'm looking at Instagram and watching people on YouTube and listening to my friends who teach in other states, and it's actually quite interesting because the quarantine started happening around a lot of people's spring breaks. Now, we don't have spring break until Easter, so my kids technically still haven't even had spring break yet. And so a lot of schools just gave 2 weeks of spring break and extended it so that they could figure out what they were going to do. Well, my school, we were at school on Friday, not this Friday, this was March 13th, and we had a meeting after school telling us that we weren't closing school, we were gonna wait it out, see what happens. This is before school started closing. And then that weekend, the governor announced the shutdown of public schools. And we went into school on Monday. We made plans and they were available to pick up the very next day. And we've been rolling ever since, and it's been fine. And it's just interesting to me to see that other schools still haven't figured it out yet. And I'm like, oh gosh. Like, I know this is different and challenging for everybody, but to me it just seems like some people are sitting back and waiting for, like, something to change instead of just taking the plunge and doing it. I'm really, really thankful that my county just took the plunge and did it, because even though it was hard and even though things have changed along the way and we're learning as we go, we've still been able to give our kids what they need, you know? I'm really thankful for that. Anyway, now that I don't have to work from home, of course today I want to, I just have like a lot of ideas building up in my head, and I'm trying to think about next school year and how I can make it better and how I can take advantage of my time right now. One thing before I get into that has nothing to do with next year. It has to do with how I'm keeping track of at-home learning. I have my kids' names on the side of this checklist, and I'm keeping track of their work this way. A lot of my students are online. My district did not pass out Chromebooks. We did not buy hotspots. We're just doing online or packet. And so most of my students are online, which is fantastic because I can see that they're actually doing the work. And that is very, I think, motivating for me to keep going, you know, because I can actually see that they are still doing things. For the first 2 weeks of assignments, we are not actually like grading them. We are just checking for completion. So I'm using all of my checklists here to just make sure that my kids have been completing their assignments. And I have dots along the side next to the kids' names because I made contact with every parent yesterday. Now, not everyone responded, but I reached out. And we have to remember, because I think that is something that is challenging for a lot of people at this time, we have to remember that reaching out and providing the materials sometimes is all we can do. Like, we are releasing the control over to the parents of their child's education, and that's just how it has to be for right now. And as long as you are doing everything you can, you are doing the absolute best. So I reached out to every parent, and like I said in my previous video, a lot of parents have been very, I use the word receptive, but I don't know if that's the right word. Like, they've just been communicating with me. They've made this process very easy for me, and I appreciate that. Because I know it's different for everyone involved. So I have to print a few more of those checklists just so I want them up to this point to make sure that I have all of my kids' assignments. And from this week on, we were supposed to be grading, but I think that's going to change too. And I think it's just going to be for completion through the end of this, because there are kids who are still not doing any work, you know? So I don't really know how this is all going to play out, but I just want to have my checklists so I can see the work that has been done. I have a bunch of fraction lessons printed out, and it's really nice because we printed the explanation and the guiding part of the lesson so that our kids who don't have internet or don't have a device, their parents or the child can even just read through it and walk themselves through it. Obviously, it's not the best way of teaching, but that's the only way you can teach when you don't have access to the child, you know? They're just gonna have to read it like they're reading from a textbook. So I have to sort that out and lay it out for 2 weeks. I also have to print out a few more documents because at first we were just planning for 2 weeks, but now we're planning through May 15th because that's when North Carolina schools are officially closed until. So I'm gonna get that done, and then I'm going to tell you what is on my mind next. So I wanted to show you what my plan was with the iReady things. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the interactive iReady online, but I absolutely love it, and it teaches the kids and has them answer questions along the way. Now, we have it this year, but there's a chance we might not have it next year. So what I did is I started with a 2nd grade standard, which is place value, because we usually review that at the beginning of the year. And I'm going through the little interactive, and I'm on my school computer over here, and I'm creating a smartboard just because I love the way that it goes through the lesson. Now, you can do something like this with any like textbook, any source you have. You can turn it into your own smartboard, but this is a very tedious thing to do, and I'll show you. I'll get to this page on the iReady and I'll show you the comparison. All right, so on the interactive, it like tells you what to do, and it has you tap on these.
You can show 127 as 12 tens and 7 ones.
Now!
So what I did is on Smart Notebook, I created this myself, and it takes a lot of layering and things, so if you don't understand that, this is not going to make sense to you. But basically, this object right here, I put a white rectangle with a blue border around it, and I grouped them together. That's why the pink is hidden. And what you want to do is you right click, you hit properties, and go to object animation, and I clicked on fade out. It usually says none, so I clicked on fade out, and that's how you get it to disappear. And once you go back to the other side, it resets. So if you understand that, great. if you don't, there are many videos out there to show you how to do it. I just learned how to do it today. And then I did the same thing here with the 10s. So once I had all my 10s here, there was no way for me to just make it go to that. So I just shifted to a new slide, and then I also turned that into that. I went through and did all this. This is a review lesson, but I love how it introduces multiple choice questions right away and that not question. And this is something that kids always struggle with. So I'm glad that I have a new resource to use. What I plan to do is try to make one of these a day so that I can have them in my toolbox to work with. Just because our smart boards truly need an update, and I think this way is going to be great.